All right, let's go to the next one here. We're on the sixth. The sixth. Okay, so this is going to be an 11 note away. I'm sorry, an 8 note away minor six. The minor six is what we would expect from a minor mode, which is kind of what the Locrian is, except it also has the crazy flat five, so it's like the diminished mode. It's the crazy mode, and so we're looking at, from the perspective of the Locrian, the 1 to the 6th, or from the perspective of an absolute modal perspective, mode number 7, which is the same structure as the major scale, the 7th of a major, Locrian, to mode number 5, Mixolydian. So if I go from the modal chord, first of the modal chord 7, or Locrian, to modal chord 5, or Mixolydian, that is going to be a distance of an 8 note away, which we can label as a minor 6. All right, so that's what we're going to do here. This is going to be the bluesy kind of interval, oftentimes. And all right, so I'm on the B. So normally we go 8 notes up this way, but I want to look at the inverse distance because it's going to be, I can reach it. It's too far away going that way. It's too far-fetched. Even for my Labrador Retriever, it's too far-fetched. We have to go the other way. So it's going to be 12 minus 8, which is going to be 4 notes back. 1, 2, 3, 4. So there's the G that we want to see. And so if I go from here, it's going to be from here 1, 2, 3, 4. So if I went from this G to that B, so from the perspective of the G, it would be a 4 note away, which would be a major third. So from that perspective, it would be like I was going from the perspective of Locrian, the 6th to the 1. So the 6th back to the 1, you would think like I'm going in reverse, but really we think of it as going from 6, 7 to 1, right? Around the horn, with the interval being a 4 note away major third. If I look at it from the perspective of absolute mode number 5, the Mixolydian mode, to absolute mode number 7, the Locrian mode, then again you get to, it's going to be that is going to be the 4 note away major third. If I go the other way, I'm going from B to G. So now I'm looking at it from going from the Locrian perspective, mode from the relative position 1 to relative position 6, which is going to give me that 8 note away minor 6. Or from the modal perspective, I'm going from absolute mode number 7, Locrian, to absolute mode number 5, Mixolydian, which has a distance of, once again, the 8 note away minor 6. Okay, hopefully I got that right. That's my new way of thinking. I'm going to try to nail that into my mind. So notice that this G, by the way, if I look up here, because this is the fault line, if I look at the G up here with our story, you can see that the G, although it's Mixolydian, which is a major mode because it has a major third in it, it doesn't live in the house of the major scale. Here's the house where C lives looking towards the ocean up top, and then F lives below it, and then they put the Locrian in the attic, and the crazy Phrygian is in the basement rocking out. But like the Mixolydian moved out because it's kind of bluesy, you know? So it's like, I'm out of here. I'm going to do my own thing. I don't need your house, super preppy C or major people. And so it moved over here, and it's in what I call the pillar, or the two string, the double stop area. So we have the Dorian up top, and it lives below on the Dorian. And then down here, we have the double stop, the double stop with the G. Oh, this is the 2 note per string. I call this the 2 note per string, basically hamburger. So we have this shape up here, what I call the box. These 2 strings, what I call the double stop box or house, and then we've got the 2 note per string, which I'm calling the hamburger, and that's because if we did a pentatonic, it would look this way. It would be the hamburger thing. And then we have down here, this is shifted up, so we have this house here and the double stop, but it's been shifted because of the kink in the tuning. This shifted up. Those are the shapes that I can break vertically my shapes down into, which will always remain the same. And again, the Mixolydian is kind of out doing its own thing, hanging with either the D Dorian or it doesn't have to be the D Dorian, the Dorian or the minor in the 2-note per string shapes. Okay, so that makes perfect sense, I think. So we're gonna go up here. So we're looking for an 8-note away minor 6, and we're gonna go above it. Therefore, I have to look for the inverse distance. 12 minus 8 is gonna be 4. So we haven't crossed the fault line, so it's gonna be 5 going up 1 string, and then 4 going back here. So I'm gonna say this is gonna go from here. It's gonna be 5, and then 4. So if I go from the perspective of that G to the B, then I'm going from relative position 6 from the perspective of the Locrian, relative position 6 back to relative position 1, or from the perspective of the modes, relative or absolute modal number 5, Mixolydian, back to or to absolute mode number 7, the Locrian. Okay, and so from that perspective, it's going to be a 8-note. It's going to be from that perspective a 4-note away major third. But if I go from the bottom to the top, now I'm going from the Locrian's perspective, the first of the Locrian to the 6th of the Locrian, or from a modal perspective, absolute mode number 7, Locrian, to absolute mode number 5, Mixolydian, which has a distance of an 8-note away minor 6. So that means if I go up 1 string, the 8-note away minor 6 will always be 1 fret forward unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen if I start on the B string. If I started on the B string, it would be right there. And so so the idea would be normally, so here's my root. And so if I cross the fault line, this tectonic plate shifted to the left, and therefore it moved it back. So normally if I go up 1 string, then the 8-note away minor 6 will be 1 fret forward unless I cross the fault line, which would only happen on the B string, in which case if I go up 1 string, the 8-note away minor 6 will be on the same fret. Let's go up 2 strings, going up 2 strings, to here, where's the G? Let's go here. So now I'm crossing the fault line, so I'm looking for an 8-note away minor 6. So from the perspective of the Locrian, I'm going from the 1 of the Locrian to the 6 of the Locrian. So let's count it out. It's an 8-note away minor 6. 12 minus 8 is a distance of 4. So I'm going to go 5 here and then 10 this way because this tectonic plate shifted to the left. So I'm going to call it negative 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. So let's count it out this way. So I'm going to say negative 5, negative, and then this shifted this way, negative 10. So negative 10, and then 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. So from here to here. So from the perspective of this G to that B, from the perspective of the G, we see that as a 4-note away minor or major third. And that would be from the perspective of going from relative position 6 to relative position 1, which would be kind of going around the horn, 6 around to 1. Or from the perspective of the modes, it would be going from absolute mode number 5, which is the relative position to the relative scale Mixolydian mode, to absolute mode 7, which would be the 7th of the major scale Locrian mode. Okay, and so that has a distance of a 3, however you want to name it, that has a distance of a 4-note away major third. If I go from the perspective of the B up to the G, then that has we're going from relative position 1 to relative position 6 of the Locrian, or from the perspective of absolute modal positions, absolute mode number 7, Locrian, to absolute mode number 5, Mixolydian, which has a distance of an 8-note away minor 6. Therefore, if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 8-note away minor 6 will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 frets forward. But I wouldn't cross the fault line if I started on either the G or the D string. So if I was on like this B and I went up 2 strings, I would be out here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, which is as far as you can go. So it would also be 6 frets back the other way. So the general rule would be, and notice where Mixolydian is living now. It's still at the bottom. It's always at the bottom under it's either hanging with the Dorian, so it's on the double stop next to the Dorian, or it's hanging with the minor on the 2 note per string hanging with the minor. So there's where we are located. And so that means that if I look at it from the perspective of the B here, when I cross the fault line, this tectonic plate shifts to the left, making it a shorter distance as I cross the fault line. So the general rule is if I go up 2 strings, then the 8 note away minor 6 will be 6 frets forward, which means it'll also be 6 frets back unless I cross the fault line, which would happen if I start from the root position of either the B or the E string, in which case if I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, the 8 note away minor 6 will be 5 frets forward. All right, let's go to the next one. And we're going to go up here. So now I'm looking at the G. Where is it located? It's the Mixolydian mode, the start of the Mixolydian mode number 5, and it's on the double stop, what I call when I name the shapes. I name the shapes by the 2 grouping, then the 1 grouping, and then the 2 grouping. So double stop house, what I call the hamburger, the meat of the hamburger, because if I looked at it in a pentatonic shape, this would be the hamburger shape. The meat of the hamburger, or 2 note per string, and then the house double stop. That's how I kind of see it. If you just looked at the shapes, right? And the house double stop is kind of the same as the double stop house, right? It's just shifted up. If you look at it, house double stop house, right? Okay, so that means that if I go up, I'm looking for the Mixolydian. I'm looking for a distance of an 8 note away minor 6. So we have to take the inverse distance. By the way, from the standpoint of a chord construction, we're looking for a minor 6, which would be this 13 from the perspective of a chord construction. Okay, trying to cram all that in there. Okay, so let's try to do this. We're going to say we're going up an 8 note away minor 6, which could also be called an 8 note away minor 13, has an inverse distance because I'm going above it of 12 minus 8, which is 4. So I'm going to say this is going to be -5. This fault line shifts to the left, so this is going to be -10, and then -15. There's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet. 15 minus 12 is -3, and then +1 is 4. So let's go from here. So -5, and then shifts this way, -10, -15. 15 minus 12 is -3, +1 is 4. There's the G. So if I go from the perspective of this G to the A, I can see that as either going from the Locrian's perspective, relative position 6 to relative position 1, which instead of seeing going in reverse backwards, I have to see from a perspective of the intervals going around the top. So that would be a distance of a 4 note away major third, or I can see it going from the Mixolydian, the absolute modal chord of Mixolydian 5 to the absolute modal chord of the 7, the Locrian. Okay, and then if I go from the bottom to the top, from the perspective of the B, now I'm going from the Locrian's perspective, the 1 to the 6, or from an absolute modal perspective, absolute mode number 7, which is equivalent to the relative position of the major scale, the Locrian mode, to absolute mode number 5, the Mixolydian, which has a distance of the 8 note away minor 6, which means that if I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 8 note away minor 6 will be 2 frets back, but I wouldn't cross the fault line if I started on the G string. For example, if I was on this B and I went up 3 strings, I would be there. So the general rule is if I go up 3 strings, the 8 note away minor 6, which could also be called the minor 13, will be 1 fret back unless I cross the fault line, which will be a larger distance because this fault line shifted to the left from the perspective of my tonic, And therefore, if I go up, what am I talking, 2 strings and cross the fault line, which would happen on the B and the E string. If I go up 2 strings and cross the fault line, then the 8 note away minor 6 will be 1, 2, 3 frets back. Wait, I'm going up 3 strings. If I go up 3 strings and cross the fault line, the 8 note away minor 6 will be 2 frets back. Okay, I kind of messed that up because the yellow one looked like the orange one. All right, so let's keep it going here. I ain't going to stop. I can keep it going. We're going to go up 4 strings now and cross the fault line, which we will always do if we go up 4 strings. We're looking for an 8 note away minor 6, which could also be called an 8 note away minor 13. It might more easily be measured from this B at the top, in which case I could say that B is going to be the same B up there. Why don't I just go from there? In which case I wouldn't have to look at an inverse distance. I can look for a distance of 8, which would just be 5, 6, 7, 8. But that's the easy way, and we're going to count it all the way up because practice, the counting, is part of the process. So we're going to say then that we're looking for the inverse distance of 12 minus 8 to be 4. So it's going to be 5 here. This tectonic plate shifted to the left, so it's going to be 10 here, 15, 12 notes in the musical alphabet. 15 minus 12 is negative 3, plus another 5 is negative 8, and then going towards 0, negative 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. Let's count it out from here. Negative 5, this shifts it with negative 10, 15, 15 minus 12 is negative 3, plus another 5 is going to be negative 8, negative 8, 7, 6, 5, 4. So if I go from the perspective of the G, from the G to the B, what is that perspective? Well, from looking at it in the key of the Locrian, it would be going from the 6th to the 1st, around, if I look at it going around the horn, which would be 4 note away major 3rd. Or from the perspective of absolute modal positions, I'm going from the absolute mode position 5, equivalent to the relative position of the major scale. That's how we label the absolute modal positions, using the major scale as the key, or mixolydian, to absolute modal chord position of 7, which is the Locrian, which once again has a distance of a 4 note away major 3rd. But if I go from the perspective of the B to the G, remember I'm always going up, counting from B, up to G, even though I'm going to a lower note up here when I'm thinking of the intervals, right? So I'm going from the perspective there then of relative position 1 to relative position 6 of the Locrian, or absolute mode number 7, Locrian to absolute mode number 6, which has a distance of an 8 note away minor 6. Therefore, if I go up 4 strings, I'm always going to cross the fault line because I can't go up 4 strings and not cross the fault line, and therefore the 8 note away minor 6, which could also be called the 8 note away minor 13, will always be 1, 2, 3 frets forward. All right, let's do the last one up to the top. Again, if I was on the top, I would usually say, well, why don't I just see where it is on the bottom and then match it to the top, because they're the same notes. If I'm looking for an 8 note away minor 6, that would be 8 steps forward. Inverse distance would be 4 steps back. 12 minus 4 brings me back to that G. Same G up top, G. All right, so now let's count it out just for practice. So we're looking for the 8 note away minor 6. So we're going to say then 12 minus 8 is a distance of 4. So we're going to say this is going to be 5. This tectonic plate shifted this way, so it's going to be 10, 15. 15 minus 12 is going to be negative 3, plus another 5 is negative 8. This is the only time we have to add another 5 to the 8 to get to the negative 13. There's only 12 notes in the musical alphabet. 13 minus 12 is negative 1, and then negative 2, 3, 4. All right, so that G, so if I go from that G, I won't count it out because we're getting long on time, but here's the G to the B. You can see, and then, I'm sorry, here it is, and then B to the G. You can see that this G, by the way, is hanging out in the shape that is going to be the 2 note per string, what I call meat of the hamburger, right? Shape, as opposed to, so if it lives in the house, and you can always see that box, the house will always be the same. But if they live outside the house, then they move around a little bit, like the G hangs out in this 2 note per string shape, and then with the Aeolian or minor scale, because it's the Dorian, it's the Mixolydian, so it's like the bluesy, so it hangs out with the minor the cool cats, the minors, and then like it hangs out with like the D in the 2-note per string. So so here it is on the hamburger shape here, and then here it is on with the D on the 2-note per string on I call that a double stop when you play them at the same time. Okay, I haven't been doing this, trying to name the shapes for a while, so I'm trying to get that back in the play. All right, let's do one more.